From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Tad Hills!
All right, thanks. Ooh. Hi, everybody. My name is Tad Hills, and I'm a writer and an illustrator from Brooklyn, New York. And today, I'm going to be reading my new book, Rocket Writes a Story, which is the companion to How Rocket Learned to Read, which, thank you. And you may know Duck and Goose. After I read my new Rocket book, I'm going to show you a little felt board demonstration, and I'm going to show you how I paint duck, okay? Let me just show you a couple pictures. This is my dog back in Brooklyn when he was a little puppy, and his name is, guess? Rocket. Yeah, his name is Rocket. This is when he's about 9 weeks old, and here he is at about a year old. And I knew that when we got Rocket, I was going to someday write a story about him, and eventually I did. And now, this book is about writing a book. In the first book, Rocket he learns how to read, he loves words, he loves books, and then in this book, you'll see, he learns how to write a story. So I think we have, there it is. So you can read along. Okay, great. Rocket loved books. He loved to read them to himself or to sit quietly by his teacher, the little yellow bird, as she read them aloud. Rocket even liked the way books smelled. When he opened a new book, it smelled like a place he'd never been to, like a friend he'd never met. The little yellow bird agreed. Books are inspiring. They make me sing. Rocket loved words, too. After snack time, his teacher would say, Rocket, why don't you use that nose of yours and sniff out some new words? And off he'd go. He'd fetch some nice ones, like buttercup, and bug, and feather, and nest. I'm looking for words, Rocket would announce to anyone who would listen. Rocket always brought his words back to the classroom and wrote them down. The little yellow bird would help him spell the tricky ones, and then they'd hang them on their word tree. Sometimes the bird added her own words to the collection. This one is small, but I promise it'll come in handy, she'd say. So there she's surrounded by all these little words like up and by and with. Small but very important words. Magnificent, chirped the little yellow bird once their tree was covered. Now what shall we do with all those splendid words? Rocket thought all afternoon, and then he had an idea. Rocket left school that day with a very waggy tail. I'm going to write a story, he declared to Fred and Emma. My story will be an adventure about the great wide world, he told a butterfly. I will use many words, he explained to Mr. Barker. Hello up there, he called as he passed the tree where he had found the word nest. I'm going to write a story. The next day, Rocket returned to his classroom. It was time to begin. He looked down at the blank page, and the blank page looked up at him. But no story would come. At snack time, Rocket gave up. I don't know what to write, he told his teacher. Don't worry, the little yellow bird replied. One of the hardest parts of writing is coming up with a good story. But it's one of the most fun, too. Perhaps you want to write about something you've seen. A bug? Asked Rocket. Yes, sang his teacher. Stories need good characters. Or what about something that happened to you today? Or something you really enjoy? My favorite stick, suggested Rocket. Of course, said the bird. Or you could write about something that inspires you. Inspires me? Asked Rocket. Yes, something that excites you, the little yellow bird sang. Rocket took a walk and looked for inspiration. He thought about friends he knew and places he'd been. He stuck his nose high in the air and sniffed the gentle breeze. And there it was, a delightful smell of pine needles and feathers. Inspiration. For the rest of the morning, he thought about feathers and pine needles and feathers. That afternoon, he started to write. In the evening, Rocket followed the beautiful smell until he found himself at the tree with the nest. Hello again, he called into the branches. Is anyone home? He heard rustling from above, but no one answered. I'm sorry to disturb you, but I must tell you that you smell very nice, very inspiring. May I ask who you are? Still nothing. Perhaps I'll come back at a more convenient time, he said, and trotted off. At night, as Rocket watched the stars, he thought about feathers and a nest in a pine tree. He thought about his story and his collection of words. On his way to school the next day, Rocket was surprised by what he saw. A brand new word, he said, and it's already written down. It says, he tried to sound the word out. Owl, came a quiet voice from the branches. It says owl. That's me. Thank you, Owl, Rocket called. I'm always looking for words, and this one's a beauty. Rocket ran all the way to his classroom. O-W-L, owl. Now there's a word you don't hear every day, chirped the little yellow bird. Only 3 letters, but what a word. It was a present, explained Rocket, and he added the new word to his story. I'm writing a story about you, Rocket announced proudly to the owl the next morning. The owl poked her head out of her nest, and for the first time, Rocket saw her friendly face. Her big round eyes blinked below feathery tufts. About me? She asked softly. Would you like to come down and hear it? Asked Rocket. Thank you, but I think I'll listen from my nest, the owl answered. So Rocket cleared his throat and began to read. Once there was an owl. She smelled like feathers and pine needles. She lived in a tree. The owl's eyes widened. Is there more? There will be, said Rocket. Each day, Rocket worked on his story. He wrote words down and crossed words out. When things were going well, he wagged his tail. When he didn't know what to write, he growled. This is very autobiographical, by the way. Sometimes he drew pictures for his story or took a walk in the meadow to look for inspiration. The little yellow bird encouraged him. Remember, stories take time, she'd say. She wanted to know more about the owl and asked Rocket questions. Why do you think the owl wouldn't come down? What color is her beak? What does she do every day? Rocket wanted to know more about the owl, too. He visited her tree often and read her his story, which changed every day. The owl was captivated. And you can see she starts at the top here as he's telling the story, and gradually she comes down. It's like a ladder. She comes down branch by branch. And when Rocket stopped, she would always ask, then what happened? At last came the day when Rocket knew he was finished. What a fine story, chirped the little yellow bird after she'd read it. In his story says, my first story by Rocket. Rocket ran to the owl's pine tree. It's done, he called. Come listen. And so down and down came the owl till she was right beside Rocket. Then Rocket began to read. He read about an owl with friendly eyes and a beak the color of a buttercup. She lived in a nest high in a tree on the edge of a meadow and smelled like pine needles and feathers. She liked to nap in the daytime and listen to stories. Branch by branch, the owl came down from her nest, Rocket read. She was shy, but she was brave, too. Suddenly, Rocket stopped. He wrote something on his paper, then began to read again. One day, the owl came all the way to the ground and became my friend. The owl blinked. Can there be one last sentence, she asked. Can you say, and the owl liked the story very much? What a perfect ending, said Rocket, and it was. The end. So that is how Rocket wrote his story, and I'm sure that many of you who have tried to write a story have come up against some of the same roadblocks that Rocket did, because I know I do. It's sometimes really hard to think of an idea for a story, and even harder to sort of follow through on it. But before I actually paint, I wanted to show you guys how I draw Duck. And you guys know Duck from this book. So here is Duck. Duck is made out of a whole bunch of very simple shapes. So when we put the shapes together, we'll actually form him, okay? So you guys will help me put Duck together. So what is this shape? It's a circle, and it's good for his what? His head. Right, so we'll put his head right here. Very simple. And now this, what is this? His body. And what do you think? Raise your hand and tell me, what do you think it looks like? One thing. What do you think it looks like? An oval, kind of. Yeah, yeah. What else? Yeah? What? I can't hear. A crescent. Yes, definitely. Up in the sky like the moon, or yes. How about a lemon? Definitely. How about a yes? A banana? A belly, definitely. I think it looks like a banana that swallowed a grapefruit. Or it looks like a grapefruit who's going to a Halloween party dressed as a banana. So now, let's see, this is a long, skinny rectangle. Goes right here, his leg. And then here is another one. It's got 2 legs. And the shape is what? Triangle, exactly. Should we use this for his beak? Well, I think Duck's beak is a little bit rounder. This is a beak like the little yellow bird in the Rocket story, but Duck's beak is more rounded. This is good for his foot. See? And now here's another one, right? And now his beak, or his bill, which looks like a door maybe, or a hat. There he is, and now he has an eye. It's just an oval. If you want to make your duck scared or surprised, you can make his eye really big. And you need to know where he's looking, so you need a little dot right there. See, he's looking at you guys, wondering why you're looking at him. And now, one thing I use is an eyebrow. This little, it's called the mighty eyebrow. If you put it up here, above his eye, it really gives him more expression. It helps tell you more about how he's feeling. So maybe he's looking up, wondering if it's going to rain, or maybe he's confused or worried. So you can really have a lot of fun. And it's just one little mark. So now he's angry, right? And if you want to make your duck really, really, really extremely angry, you can tilt his head down like this. You see? Now that's as angry a duck as you'll ever see. And if you ever do see a duck this angry, what do? Run away. And you can also go like this, and instead of using that line as an eyebrow, you can use it as it's a closed eye now, so now he looks like he's sleeping or he's sad. And then if you go like this, tilt his head back, now he's not sad. He still could be sleeping, but I think he looks like he's proud, or maybe he smells something really good cooking, like a cherry pie, or he just really doesn't want to talk to anybody right now. So that is how you make duck, and it's a good lesson, because if you want to draw something, just look at what that thing is and look at the shapes that make up that thing, and just break it down so that then you put those shapes together, and there you go. You got what you're trying to draw. So now I'm going to actually draw and paint duck. So I'll put what I just showed you, what I just taught you, to work. So I start with a circle, which it may be hard to see at first because I draw it lightly. So here's a circle, right? And a little neck. And then he's got a body that's the shape of a banana that swallowed a grapefruit. And then he's got two long rectangular legs. There's one. He's got a triangular foot. And here's another one behind that one. Triangle. And you can't quite see that back one because it's covered by the one in front. And then he's got a beak like this. And he's got a little wing that's sort of like a V. And then he's got an eye. And so where should he be looking? Up? Up. Why not? He's looking up. So, and then he definitely needs something to stand on because you don't want him just floating around. So give him a little grass in the meadow. There he is. And now I can actually paint him. I think I have a couple more minutes, maybe. So this is the fun part. You get to fill him with color. And while I'm doing this, if anybody has any questions they want to ask me, raise your hand. Yeah? When am I going to color it in? Right now. See? What else? Yeah? What's it? Something about him being yellow. You think? It's really hard to hear. Lots of yellow. Of course, yeah. Look at all the yellow I have here. You have a duckling? No. It has to be a duckling if it's yellow. Yes. How old do you think duck is? 3? I think duck is a lot like a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old child. Do you think so? I mean, he's definitely not in high school or college, right? So it is hard for me to hear the questions, but if you really yell, maybe I can. And if you have questions later, I'm going to be walking around all day, and if you see me, you can ask me anything. And I'm also going to be signing my books, so if you get a book, I'll sign it, and you can ask me a question then. Yeah? Where can you purchase the book? Good question. Right over at the Book Sales Pavilion. Yes? Okay. Yes? Do you have a question? She asked if I'm going to paint it just orange and yellow. Well, I am. I'm going to quickly fill in Duck's body and his legs and then put a little green for the grass. I usually don't paint this fast. I take my time usually, but since I only have a couple minutes left, I'm really going to go quickly. So, and if you want to draw a goose, my goose is white with black legs and black and sort of mustard-colored beak. But, you know, this is just how I paint duck and goose. You can paint your duck and goose any color. That's the great thing about being an illustrator or an artist. You can do whatever you want, make anything, whatever color you want. So now, I have orange, but if I didn't have orange, what two colors would I mix together to make orange? Yellow and red. Right. So, is Duck a boy or a girl? Duck is a boy. And Rocket is a boy, but the little yellow bird is a girl. She's a teacher, his teacher. So here we go. The last thing I'm going to do is put a little grass on the ground, and then I'll be done. Are there any other questions? Yes. What's that? There are some girls in the story. In Duck and Goose, in Duck, Duck, Goose, there's Thistle. Thistle is a girl. And also there's the Bluebird. She's a girl. And in the Rocket books, the little yellow bird is a girl. And also there's Fred and Emma. Emma is a girl. So yeah, there's a few. Okay. So basically that's Duck. That's how I draw Duck. So thank you guys. And like I said, if you have more questions, I'm around pretty much all day. So enjoy the show, the festival.
Ted,
thank
you're
you.
Awesome.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.